Thank you. Hi, everybody. Oh. How are you? Wow. Sold out hometown crowd, man.
Look at this.
Look at all that. Wow.
Wow.
I love coming here. I just need to throw that out there. So like knowing that it's a sold out, what, 650 people and then a bunch of folks joining online. How many? 660.
Aye, aye.
Sorry. Like, thank y'all for being here and a huge round of applause to Chasten. Yeah. Now I wanted to just be honest. This is only my second time in Traverse City. We came to visit about 2 years ago. Had the best week. Kayaking, hiking, a lot of family. It is truly Main Street USA. I wrote this down because of how little I knew before I finally got to come. But earlier today, this was my favorite part. So earlier today, right, my second time in Traverse City, and we were headed out to do a hike at the dunes. And as soon as we turn onto this road, Chasten just goes, wow, there's nothing like driving on a dirt road, huh? To which I replied, I took the subway to the airport. So I'm the fish out of water in tonight's conversation, and I love it, man. It's just such a gorgeous place. So I also just wanted to thank y'all for having me. Yeah.
Welcome back.
Thank you. We've been friends for a while. I just I did the note cards, in case I missed anything. But the first question I wanted to ask, since we're here for the hometown kickoff,
Yeah.
Traverse City features really prominently in this book. What was it like growing up here, and what made you want to return here as an adult with your family?
Yeah. Well, may I first just say, it is so incredible to be here with all of you tonight. And the fact that we're about to have this 1 hour together, it is 1 hour, you knew that, right? It means so much to me. It means so much to me to come home and see the City Opera House packed full of people who want to be here to have this conversation. So thank you for being here. So for anyone who doesn't know, some stuff happened when I grew up here. I was a lonely kid growing up in a city that I thought wasn't ready for me yet. I thought I had to run away from Traverse City as fast as I could. And the older I got, the more armor I was able to put between me and the world. I was able to come out of the closet, figure out who I was, become a very proud person. Then I started to see all of the values of Traverse City that I couldn't see because I could barely see 2 steps ahead of me when I was younger. I didn't appreciate the landscape. I didn't appreciate the people. I didn't appreciate much of anything growing up here because I was so enveloped in my own fear and anxiety about this town finding out my biggest secret and getting run out of it. So I thought the easiest thing to do would be to run away myself. Now that I know who I am, I'm so proud of who I am and proud of my family. I can see all of the things that make Traverse City the best place in the world. There's nothing like, yeah. And you've seen it.
Do you say that in all the cities?
It is so good to be in Cleveland. Cleveland's great, if anyone's from Cleveland. You're from Cleveland? You have, Grader's is a wonderful ice cream establishment. Oh, that's Cincinnati, isn't it? So, like you sharing Traverse City with you and sharing Traverse City with friends who come to our neck of the woods and watching the wonder and amazement. You know, we hiked Pyramid Point today, and we took a journalist and a photographer out there, and I was the one like stepping back and watching these people, you know, that just oogle at this beautiful sight. And so now that I'm raising kids and I have a family and I want to be closer to my family, I want my kids to be closer to their grandparents and their extended family. Like there's so much about Traverse City that just feels like home. I've never felt that anywhere else in the world. I've lived in a lot of different places. I've traveled the world. And we had this reporter following us around this morning, and we met downtown, and we were standing outside of Horizon Books, and that was one of their first questions was, you know, why come back here, and what about Traverse City? And you could literally smell the cherry pie next door at the pie company. It's like, I mean, can you smell the pie in the air? So now it's idyllic, and I know that there's so much more progress to be made. It's not to say that Traverse City doesn't have its issues, but I want to be part of that. I want to be part of the renaissance of Traverse City. And I felt like making the decision to come here, we could be part of that. And I've just never felt that way. I feel like my blood pressure comes down when I'm home. And I just feel at home the way I don't feel anywhere else in the world.
I mean, when I flew in last night, I was on the same flight as Pete, and when we got out of the airport, I remember just being like, the air is amazing here. And he was just like, yeah, you know, it's incredible. Also, since you brought up the hike, does anybody know the answer to this question? So like as an outsider, you know, we do the hike, we're on top of the dunes, and then there are all these signs like, if you hike down to the water, which looks incredible, if you hike down to the water, and if you can't make it back up, first of all, you should know that it's about 2 hours to get back up. And I'm like, really? I feel like I could do that in 40 minutes. But then there's all the signage about like, you will be charged to be rescued. How much? Does anybody know? I just was super curious. I'm like, you didn't put the price there for a reason, either because it's like $19, which in my book is worth it. It's just like a ticket to a thing, right? Or it's like $3,000. I feel like there's not going to be a middle ground.
But you know, even if that was the price, there would be some of the tourists that come and be like, you mean we can get a helicopter ride from the bottom for $3,000?
Yeah.
I think it's worth it. I think it's, you know. But we did not go to the bottom, by the way.
Correct. We did not.
I was remarking that in high school, I used to hike Pyramid Point all the time. When I wanted to escape and I wanted to be by myself, I'd also go with friends, and we would run to the bottom and then swim and then hike back up. And I got to tell you, life comes at you fast. Just getting up there, standing at the top, I was like, it's beautiful, right? Yeah. You used to run down this all the time. All right, get your picture. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, now let's go. Is there air conditioning around somewhere?
Yeah.
Well, it was gorgeous. So I guess, all right, that question will be, will still be a question mark. We'll find out the answer.
Someone could get back to us.
Someone will get back to us, exactly. Yeah. I want to ask you about Fish Camp. You know how much I loved both books, the first book and the young adult version. You know, my partner Josh grew up in a really small town in Mississippi, and there are some parallels in terms of how both of you grew up. I grew up the son of immigrants outside of New York City, in a suburb of New York in New Jersey. So my frame of reference for a lot of things was very different. And when I was reading the first book, I'm like, oh, this is really similar to some of the ways in which Josh grew up. They had deer camp, and I heard a ton of stories about going to deer camp every year, what it was like. Then I'm reading your book, and I'm like, I would not have known what Fish Camp was if Josh hadn't told me about deer camp, because the only frame of reference I had is a restaurant in Manhattan called Mary's Fish Camp. And I would have been reading that book just being like, so he's gone to Mary's Fish Camp with the family? So
and there was no running water?
Right. So I would love to hear, obviously, about your experience at Fish Camp, but also like, what were those years like, and what did you take away from all that, especially such that you mentioned it in the book, you know?
It was so formative for me.
Yeah.
My uncle owns land up near Baraga, Michigan, if anyone's familiar. Oh, great, cool. So good to be home, you know? It just, you say Baraga, people are like, oh yeah, right across the bay from Lance, yeah? And like, yeah, cool. So, you know, dad would pack up the truck and, you know, we'd take all our tackle and our gear and our coolers and we would drive up to Baraga and we'd stop across the bridge and back on our bridge and like get a pop and some beef jerky, and it was a really exciting part of the adventure. Never took us to the mystery spot. At least on the fish camp journeys. I don't ever remember going there, and I'm not bitter. We did go to that deer park, though, which was questionable. By the way, we also have deer camp. I just didn't go. So, you know, there's deer camp season, and then there's, you know, fish camp season. So I was this like eclectic, energetic, goofy kid, nothing like my brothers, and really kind of nothing like my dad in the sense of the ways, you know, all of my hobbies. And I was good at fishing. And fish camp was my opportunity to sort of stick my neck out, kind of best my brothers at something that I wasn't very athletic. So it's not like I didn't feel like I was impressing my family by winning the trophies, you know, in athletics, but I wasn't afraid to touch a worm or, you know, grab the pliers and pull a hook out of a fish's mouth. And so fish camp for me was like my opportunity to be like, I am one of the men, you know? And this cabin way out in the middle of the woods, no running water, no electricity. You're sleeping on bunk beds and in sleeping bags. Obviously, when I was a kid, no Wi-Fi, no cell service, nothing. And northern lights and wolves howling and just pure, just Michigan, right? You know, I was afraid of saying it. I was gonna do it.
Yep.
Thank you so much, everyone, for coming. It's so good to be here. Pure Michigan, right? But these are also the things I couldn't see when I was a kid. The value, like the beauty of going to fish camp and, you know, laying on a picnic table and staring at the stars with your father is actually really cool. You know, there were so many beautiful things that my parents were instilling in my life. One of them, my dad taking me to fish camp. So hiking through the woods, no compass, no GPS. You know, I definitely have my dad's. That's where I got my sense of direction. You know, oh, the moss is on this tree, we're going right. You know, things like that. Way down to the middle of the river, stand there all day fishing and catch your dinner filleted over the fire. And my dad had this great gentleness about him that allowed me to feel like I was still one of the boys when clearly I was not, you know? So I really bonded with him on those trips. I would spend more time fishing with him. My brothers would go off and do their thing, you know? Dad didn't mind that sometimes I just wanted to read a book. And while my brothers like went off and practically started forest fires, you know, with like all their hijinks and stuff. That's when I really was able to bond with my father. And it obviously shaped me in many ways because I developed all these great, valuable life skills. And now it's just really, it's really touching to see him fishing at, you know, our house now with our kids and kind of seeing that come full circle. But Baraga, Michigan is where I really cut my teeth on roughing it. You know, it's one of those situations where like you go to your uncle's house, you call mom and say, we've made it, and then she won't hear from us for a week, which is probably great for her. And then you like reemerge a week later and you go back and take a shower before you drive back to Traverse City. And now that like when I write about it in the book, now it's like when I was there, I was surviving. It's like shooting guns, you know, shooting clay pigeons and doing all these things that, you know, hopefully my brothers wouldn't pick on me and hoping that it was impressing my father. And now I'm able to sit back and realize how formative those experiences were, how special those experiences were, and all of the life lessons I got out of them. But at the time, you know, I was just so in my head about performing the masculinity and the presentation that I thought my father wanted from me. And now, growing up, I know he didn't care about any of those things, but here we are.
I wanted to ask you about that. one of the other sections I really loved are the stories about 4-H and the pole barn. And one of the reasons I loved it is I remember the first time I read it in the first book. I remember texting you and being like, dude, what I love about this story is we could not have grown up in two more different places, but we both happen to be gay. We both happen to have incredibly loving families. What an incredible testament to a diverse country that we live in, that all of these experiences happened in the same place. So I was so glad that you shared that story, and because I was the fish out of water reading it, I also loved how you tied that into the idea of masculinity, or the idea that people had of masculinity. And I could tell, you were talking about 4-H, you were talking about showing steers. How much of that, the dressing up, the actual doing it, how much of it was grounding to you? How much did you love, and how much of it felt performative when you look back?
That's tough because there were elements of my childhood where I was definitely like alive and free and happy. But in many of those situations, I was just doing my best to blend in. And now, just like fish camp, growing up, you realize that there are all these great values of 4-H. But in 4-H, what I loved about it was actually most of the year is spent in solitude. You go to the barn, you feed your animal, you walk your animal, you do most of that work by yourself. What I feared was the fair. Because then you go to the fair and you're surrounded by a bunch of other guys who have an idea of what it means to be like a good roughneck Christian country boy. And that was not me. So I look at these photos, one of them which is in the back of your book.
It's a really good picture,
It's
by
great.
the way. It's really cool.
I think you have to get to a point of like, I'm going to put it in the book.
Yeah.
I think they need to see this. So this picture, it's this kid in his like Wrangler jeans. I got one of those shirts with like cowboys on them, with like rope and a lasso. And there are all these photos of me in 4-H, like with my American flag Wrangler shirt, and my Stetson, and my boots, and my eagle belt buckle. And when I was looking through those photos and like trying to figure out the stories I wanted to tell, one of the things I felt was just so sorry for that kid, because I didn't want to be there. And I wasn't focused on showing my animal. I wasn't focused on, all of the educational qualities of 4-H, which is a great program. I was so in my head about meeting the expectations of masculinity that I thought everybody else in my 4-H club, my family, all of my peers held. So I leaned into it really hard. Like I went to the showmanship classes. I won the blue ribbons because I thought that I could distract people from my difference if I was really good at the thing that they were doing. So I'd win a blue ribbon and I would feel a sense of pride because my parents were proud of me, but to me it was like a great distraction to all of the other boys. Like, please leave me alone. Please don't talk to me. Look, I'm talented. I won a blue ribbon, and then we wouldn't have to talk about the thing that I was fearing the most.
Was that solitude something that you enjoyed, or something that was necessary for you to do?
I think most of the solitude, I sought out just so I could be alone with my thoughts. I'd go to the barn and be by myself. I could go bowling by myself. I could go hiking by myself. And I was often trying to find these slivers of isolation to breathe. And the hard part, I think, is that I was a really loud kid. I was, dare I say, funny and entertaining. I was always writing the plays, and I was in drama, and theater is actually the thing that saved my life. 'Cause once my parents enrolled me at the Old Town Playhouse, then I could go pretend to be somebody else. And not only, could I be on stage pretending to be somebody else, then I could escape my own self, So I was doing all of these things, but trying to do them in a way that I hoped would distract everybody else from the big secret.
I know we have a lot of students and young people who joined tonight, which is great because this book is you wrote it specifically for them.
Yeah.
And I know you've talked about during your time, your childhood in Traverse City, there were parts of it that you loved, but you also spent a lot of time fearing this place. Can you talk about why?
Well, Traverse City just wasn't ready for gay people yet. It wasn't the time. And that little thing about me, that little detail, was the thing I was convinced was going to ruin it all. It didn't matter that you're good at bowling or 4-H or theater. It doesn't matter that you're entertaining or academically gifted. If people find out that you are gay, it's over. And I grew up, the thing that I reflect often on about our place in the world is that we were born at the tail end of the AIDS epidemic. And then about the time I was turning 9 years old, Matthew Shepard was murdered. And maybe for some of the young people in the audience, Matthew Shepard was a gay man in Wyoming who was brutally attacked and left for dead. And it was a big media sensation and a really big story. And then the murder trial was a really big story. And that was just about the time that I was starting to figure out what was going on, starting to acquire the language of what those feelings inside meant. And Matthew Shepard told me, "You'll die." Because Matthew Shepard was taken by 2 men in a pickup truck and tied to a fence post and left for dead. And I grew up around a lot of pickup trucks and fence posts. And I was convinced that that could happen to me. So I just knew that it wasn't safe. And then the "We Are Traverse City" sticker happened. Yeah, we can laugh about it now, right? Ridiculous. There was a sticker designed here with like these rainbow puzzle pieces. And it said, "We Are Traverse City." Like all the puzzle pieces coming together, holding hands, right? Graphic design wasn't big back then. Simple sticker, right? And the vociferous homophobia, the backlash to these stickers, not even people, stickers on city vehicles. And then they just started getting ripped off and then they were gone. And so what kind of message does that send to a young person? Like, it's not even about your humanity. We don't even want you to have a sticker. And so I just knew that it wasn't safe to be out at that time. Now look at us, right?
Your parents are awesome.
They are.
I've enjoyed chatting with them. In the book, you talk about running away from home after you came out. I was hoping you could tell us why, but even more important than that, perhaps, how it is that you found your way back.
Yeah. My parents are here tonight. It is incredible that I get to say that my parents are here tonight. Not everybody gets that. For anybody who has met my parents or knows my parents, small town, they're incredible people, kind people, hardworking people, very giving people, and all of these great attributes that I think I soaked up from them just highlight how good of parents they were. But we didn't talk about gay people. We didn't talk about the existence of LGBTQ people back then. And it's not their fault. You know, we all just grew up in a different time, in a different place. And because my parents were so fantastic, tons of friends, active in 4-H, always there at their kids' games. My mom was known for bringing the snacks to all the hockey games and the baseball games. You know, she's like the snack mom. Like, that's the kind of mom she was. My dad owns a family business. I was just so convinced that if I came out, not only would it break them, but that I would embarrass them, that my dad would lose business, that they would lose all of their friends, some very religious friends who were very vocal about their religion and their homophobia. And I was so embarrassed. And for 18 years, I convinced myself that it wasn't that I was convinced that they wouldn't love me. It was that I would embarrass them and bring great shame on them. And I thought the easier thing to do was just to get out. And so I remember when I came out to my mom, I apologized. And I handed her a letter and I'm sorry. Because I didn't know. I just didn't know. I didn't know that it was okay to be gay. I was convinced that like something had happened, something was broken, my DNA was compromised, and that it would break them. So I just ran. And a couple rough months followed, and I couch surfed, and I had just enrolled at NMC, and it was just, I don't know what kept me around. I really didn't see much ahead of me. All my friends were going off to university, and I could barely make it to NMC. I could barely show up to work because I was convinced, like, what's the point? You're just going to lose it all. And then one day, mom called and said, you need to come home. We'll figure it out. And that is one of the most miraculous gifts I've ever been given in my life, because so many young people, and I got to meet so many of these young people when my husband ran, and I toured the country, and I would sit down with these young people, and so many people's stories stop at, so I ran. And then they never heard from their mom ever again. And my mom called me home, and it was tough, right? We had all the tough conversations. They asked all the right questions and the wrong questions, and we figured it out because they loved me more than anything else. You do not want to hear Sherry Glezman talk about bigotry in this country. Like the way in which that evolution happened in our family, that a family was more convinced that love was the important thing and family was the important thing, and that we would figure everything else out. My parents walked me down the aisle at my wedding. I got to hold my parents' hand when we marched during Pride here in 2019. It's just incredible, the progress that's happened. So I'll end this with a call to action for the parents in the room. And again, I say this with all the love in my heart to my parents. We just grew up in a different time. I could have benefited from a 10-second conversation with my parents when I was younger. Not having them sit me down and say, it's important that you know that we will love you no matter what. Whether you're gay, you're straight, you're bi, whoever you are, it's important that you know that you will always have us in your corner and we will always love you. And it's awkward to have these kind of conversations with your kids, right? And we talk about our feelings, but like life-saving. Imagine if my parents had told me that when I was 13 and I could have spent the rest of 5 years throwing myself into all of my passions and seeing a future ahead. But that just wasn't the time that we were growing up in. So if you're a parent or you're a teacher, it's so important. Well, whoever you are, whatever you do, it's so important that you know there is tremendous power in your words and your actions, and you can save people's lives if you just let them know that they are loved unconditionally for who they are. And I'm so glad that I have my parents in my corner and that my story had a rainbow at the end of it, pun intended.
My only follow-up to that, since you sort of opened the door for it in, I think, a really beautiful way, was advice to parents and other folks in the room. But if you could go back and talk to the younger version of yourself, is there anything that you would wish you could have told that kid?
So much. Like fashion advice.
I don't know, man. The way you were describing that cowboy shirt, I'm like, that could go for $350 in Chicago. Somewhere. Like, somebody would pay.
Are you kidding?
That.
In Brooklyn? Can you imagine?
Oh, Brooklyn 700. You know?
I write in the book that this kid's so absorbed in everyone's opinions, and why the heck was I wearing Hawaiian shirts all the time? So like, oh, I want to blend in. I don't want to stick out. I'm gonna wear floral in February, you know? It just, you know, if you consider yourself an ally, then allyship has to be an action word. And this is a season for active allyship. So I think one of the traps that allies fall into is they say like, I love everyone. I love everyone, you know? Like, okay, what are you doing about that? You know? Where are you donating your money? Where are you donating your time? How are you using your privilege? Are you going to your city council meetings? Are you going to your school board meetings? I know they're not fun. But they're trying to ban books right now. So we might need you to go to the school board meeting. Are you showing up for your teacher, your kid's teacher? You make sure that they know that you have their back. It's active allyship. You can't just post a rainbow on Facebook and buy that shirt at Target in the Pride section and call it quits. And I know we're busy and we're tired and you know we've got a lot of things going on. So you got to find the way that you yourself can contribute. And for some of you, maybe it's just money. Write a check to Up North Pride. Write a check to an organization that's doing really valuable work on the ground, whether they're trying to solve the homelessness crisis, whether they're trying to make sure that Traverse City in Northern Michigan is a welcoming and accepting place for everybody. But it has to be active. Donate a couple hours a month, a year. But you got to do something. So my advice to everyone is to think about the ways in which you use your time, your money, and your words. Every aspect of life, as you know, you don't just come out once. You come out over and over and over and over again. Whether you're sitting next to a stranger on an airplane and they see your wedding ring, and they're like, so what does your wife do? You know, you're like always coming out in this world. And you got to think about the people in maybe your workplaces or your classrooms or your environments. How do they know that this is a safe place? How do they know that, you know, it's okay to be themselves? So, okay, I'll get off my soapbox and we'll go to your next question.
Well, no, because but the soapbox I'm curious about, because when I was looking at, you're going to 18 different places, right, for this book tour?
Yeah.
So a lot of them are in states that have passed extremely regressive laws targeting LGBTQ folks.
Yeah.
A lot of those places have banned books, particularly books that target Black, Indigenous, people of color, LGBTQ plus folks. I'm wondering why you're going to the Texas, Utah, Missouris of the country, and based on your last answer, I feel like you got a juicy response. But yeah, like in crafting it, right? Knowing that you have a young adult book that's a story about an incredible gay man's journey that's told with such love and positivity. I was just curious, what made you want to go to those places, and what are you hoping that people will take away in those communities?
Well, it's precisely because they're banning books and passing those laws that I want to go there. Imagine what it's like. Imagine what it's like to be a young person in one of those states, to watch adults in positions of power attack your humanity. So I sat down when I was coming up with a book tour and said, you know what? At least we can go. At least young people will know that there's somebody not overlooking their state who wants to come and help. So at least for 1 hour, we can share community and talk about things that matter. I think it's important that families and teachers and young people have those opportunities, even though the adults in their state house aren't acting like it. So I look forward to it. I think it's going to be great. And I'll be in Cleveland on June 9th. So I'll see you there.
The book itself, there's understandably it talks about trauma. It deals with things that are really difficult. It deals with difficult years, when you're a kid and you're trying to figure stuff out. But it's also such a funny book. I mean, obviously he is a very funny person, but I that really stuck out to me that you told these stories with so much humor. Was that a choice, or is that just how those stories came out?
Yeah, because all of the stories that I got when I was younger about queer people were either like you're the butt of the joke or you're the victim, And I knew that writing a book about trauma it was important for me when you're talking to a young person, is that the message in all of that is that it gets better. It gets better. It gets better. I believe it will get better. And I mean, there's so much I want to say to young people in here, but in sharing those really painful details, I hope that it sheds light on the importance of allyship, the importance of these conversations, and the fact that you don't have to do it alone. That's why I talk about my experience with my parents. People in my life who came around, people in my life who showed up for me, people who saved my life. Because it's important that young people know that there is a path forward. And certainly as I call myself a politically adjacent person. I know that in the political world, we're not supposed to talk about our feelings. We're not supposed to be vulnerable. We shouldn't talk about our trauma because that might make us look weaker. And I think there is great power in vulnerability. And I hope that by sharing some of those fears and anxieties, it will allow other people to feel seen and understood, especially young people who might be in very similar situations.
The fish out of water thing. So for me, obviously coming to places that I didn't grow up in and absolutely loving every part of it, I assume one of your fish out of waters recently is the fact that you guys live in DC, which is not a place that you grew up. How long have you been there?
2 years.
Okay. Have you met Obama?
Yeah, I've met him a couple times.
Okay. People ask me this question since I worked there, and they're always like, tell me a funny story about Obama. And the biggest thing I could muster was like, when I was a staffer, I would shave. I would not have this beard. But there was like a weekend where I was working all weekend, and I was at the White House, and I had like a wrinkled shirt, and I hadn't shaved for a few days, and I'm walking around. I happened to run into the president, who said hello, very kind. And then that Tuesday, I had to go brief him in the Oval Office, and I walked in like, shaved, haircut, suit pressed, because I knew Pete Souza, the White House photographer, was going to be there. And I'm like, my future grandkids and my mom, like they're all going to see this photo, right? I take one step into the Oval Office, and President Obama looks at me and just goes, "Hey, look who decided to shave today." And I was like, no, you cannot. This can't be how this goes. Now I can't tell my mom this story. It's just going to be embarrassing for everybody. Sir, please do it again. So, like, when you've been in these rooms and in these situations, has everything always gone
Never
smoothly, or did you have that sort of
I'm like, sometimes I'm like, how did I become this person? And I also like, I don't know. I feel like a lot of the people in Washington wanted to be there their whole life. And for me, I try to stay as grounded as possible. I'm always like pinching myself every time we go to the White House. Like, you're in the White House. Like, don't let this become normal, And because I am me, I do weird stuff all the time. Like, all the time. Like, did anyone watch Veep? Are you familiar with Veep, the show on HBO Veep? Are you familiar with the show on HBO? Yeah, so this president is like not very good at being president. And there's a scene, where she walks down the colonnade in her high heels that like squeak, fart the whole way down the colonnade, And my shoes at the state dinner just squeaking the whole night. And it was like, it was like walking in the room like this. It was like, don't squeak, like the whole time, but not trying to like walk like that, but like walking up to the president in the White House And it's like, you know, like, obnoxious. Of course that happened that night. And the first time I met Obama, I pulled his finger on accident. Like, of course. It's like reaching for his hand to shake his hand, and there's all these people, and somebody bumped into me, and then I was like, "Why are you pushing?" And then I feel a hand on my hand, and I turn around, and it's him shaking my hand, and I was like, "Oh, hey!" And then I reached back, and like all I could grab was his finger, and then, because you know, when you go to the president, and then you reach back and grab his finger, what should you do? You should let go about your life. And instead, I went, oh, Merry Christmas, Mr. President. And he just went, yeah. That was it. Because of course.
Why not? Yeah, why wouldn't that have happened to you?
Yeah. There's this really lovely picture. You want to hear all the embarrassing things?
Yes,
I should save
was
them
gonna
all
keep
for a
going.
book one day. We took the kids to the White House for Christmas when they were like beans, you know? The whole night, angels, just like sleeping in our arms. You know, they're what, like 5 months old? And they're like cute little Christmas dress and sweater. And like walking around the White House, and everyone's like, oh, yes, congratulations, blah, blah, blah. You get up to the photo line to meet the president and the vice president, and they're like, oh my gosh, your babies, congratulations, so good to see them. And then there was a smell. And it was like, these are my children, cut from the same cloth. Like, we're just gonna get out of here, you know? God love them. It's a funky town. You gotta stay humble, you know?
It's not even just politicians. Didn't you had a very fun Disney story that I no? Okay, all right. No, you don't have to.
When I write all these in a book, will you guys buy that one day? Because I feel like very early on in my political experience, when I didn't know how to like be chill, and, you know, I do know how to be chill. Like other people should be chill. I sat next to this person at an event. And I was like, "Hi, I'm Chasten. I'm Pete's husband." I'm like, "Oh, that's great." It's like, "What do you do?" It's like, "I work for Disney." Like, "Oh, that is so cool. What park?" It's like, "All of them." It's like, "Oh my gosh, so you're like high up on the chain." He's like, "Yeah." It's like, "Have you ridden the new Star Wars ride?" He was like, "Yeah, I've ridden the ride. Like, it looks really cool." It's like, "It is pretty cool." Like, that's incredible. I mean, to work for Disney, like, did you ever imagine growing up and working for, how cool? Like, I'm asking him about the perks. You must get a pretty good discount, you know? It's like, "So what do you do for Disney?" It's like, "I run it." I'm like, cool. Hey, I remember saying something like, "Oh, good job," or like something like, "Wow, that's so cool."
Very nice.
Whatever. I'm sure, yeah, like, we all need to be humbled sometimes, right? Whatever.
So DC's going well.
DC's great, man. It's
yeah.
that's why I love being in Traverse City, because it's just real. It's just a real place with real people, and not like DC is great. I always say the district is wonderful. It's beautiful. I love the museums and the parks and the playgrounds, and I love you, Traverse City. We should get a Trader Joe's sometime. Like, I love a Trader Joe's. I like a Trader Joe's. It's Washington that is frustrating. You know, it's the sound machine and the people not doing their jobs, and you know, that stuff is frustrating. The district is pretty, but I would prefer to be here. Yeah.
Well said. The first edition of this book came out in 2020. What made you want to write a young adult version?
I liked writing the first book. It was harder to find like a true mission for that book because it's like, you know, tell your life in like 250 pages. Like, what do you do? And when we started talking about adapting it for young readers, I knew exactly what I wanted to say because I wanted to write the book that I wish I would have had in 8th grade. And so I knew from the beginning, like what stories to cut, what I wanted to include, what I wanted to expand on, and all of the things that I wish I could say to my younger self and all of the other, you know, versions of younger me out there. So that was more exciting to me writing this one. And I got more time to write this one. I had over 2 years to write this one. And the kids were born while writing this one. So they just, you know, bring everything into focus. There's so much more clarity about what you want to say to your students, what you want to say to your kids. And it's just, I wish I could have read it in 8th grade. So while working through some of that trauma and those stories, like I knew what I wanted to say. And I do have something to tell you.
Yes? But what is it?
Oh no, I have something to tell you.
Oh.
It's the title of the book.
Oh.
Yeah.
Couple of housekeeping
gonna be
things.
it for us,
That's
right?
it. That's how we. I know we're gonna. I'm keeping tabs on time, and I know we've got 3 microphones. I just wanted to point out, and we'll take some audience questions in a few minutes. One is down here, one is up there, and then there's a roaming one.
And the other one is hidden.
Yeah. If it's under your seat, you get to ask the question. Third one's up there. So we'll. I've got a couple more, and then I know we wanted to hear from some of the folks who are here. So
Okay.
feel free to line up. There's a lot I think that that you highlighted in the book and that we talked about tonight. Things that that really need a push. Things that we're really concerned about. Concerned is maybe a soft way of underscoring how fearful many of us are for the things that are happening in specific states. What are some of the things that are going right, and what are the things that you see that make you hopeful?
Young people are awesome, you know. There's something about watching young people go through the world being so exhausted of adults, you know? It's like, you're gonna save us. Especially some of the young people I've met who struggle to understand how we didn't achieve equality or how we're still not achieving equality faster. And they're so fed up. And I love it. Yeah. Do you have, and do a little mini soapbox, just a little one?
Please.
You have people in positions of power right now who are more focused on drag queens and beer bottles than making young people's lives easier. Not even making their lives easier, but keeping them alive in school. Yeah. And to the young people in the audience, one, I say, I'm sorry on behalf of all of the adults. I'm sorry that there are people who, for one, I used to teach 8th grade. We hold you to a higher standard of decorum and ethics than we do adults in elected office in the United States of America. Right?
100%. Yeah.
You go to class and it's like, sharpen your pencil, sit down, be quiet. And these people go to the floor of the House of Representatives and they're like, drag queens are the biggest problem in America. And the thing I love about young people is they're like, yeah, we're just gonna vote you out. You know, like we're done with this. And I know that there is so much fear and anxiety. And it's not just enough in some places to be fed up because of all of the other things I don't have enough space on the soapbox to talk about. But it's the fact that young people are so committed to the ideas of equality and truly justice for all that inspire me. And it's the adults who have to back them up. And then while I have the opportunity, I just want to say one more thing. So maybe I am wrong, but when I was writing lots of emails to PFLAG chapters around the country, I noticed that there is not a PFLAG official chapter on the website in Traverse City, Michigan. So would anyone like to start one? Great. Please start a PFLAG chapter. If you're not familiar, PFLAG is an organization for parents and families of LGBTQ people. And LGBTQ thank you. They really need your help right now. And it's a great resource. I know my mom's very fired up about this. Because young people, they need your help right now. Teachers need your help right now. There are a lot of people being attacked by politicians who have nothing to offer right now other than fear and division. They're not committed to doing their job of making your life easier and safer. And so do what you can to have their back. And I think one great thing that I would love to see in Traverse City, which I would happily be a part of, I'm a little busy, but I would love to join a meeting, is a PFLAG chapter so parents and families can come together and talk and think about how they're going to collaborate and protect vulnerable LGBTQ people here in Northern Michigan. Okay, Cal, what's your next question?
Last question before we open it up to folks. You know, there may be certainly young people in the audience who might be struggling with their identity, maybe thinking about their identity. There also might be older folks who might be considering the same thing. I remember when my book came out 2 years ago, and I talked about how my partner Josh and I met over a NASCAR race. I'm a huge NASCAR fan now because of that.
We don't have time to unpack
I know.
I
know. The whole fish out of water thing goes deep with me, but I am a huge NASCAR fan. But I remember when I was sharing some of those stories, it wasn't just, you know, the teenager who would, you know, send a tweet or ask a question at a book event. A lot of times it was adults who maybe were a bit quieter and said, I just want you to know that this was very helpful or reassuring. So I guess my question for you, especially since you wrote a young adult version of your book, what would you have to say to some of those folks who might be thinking about their identity in new ways for the first time?
It's going to be okay. It will be okay. My life turned around because other people showed up for me and made space for me. Some of them older LGBTQ people in Traverse City who had such harrowing stories that I couldn't recognize as a young person. I knew a couple in Traverse City who told me about driving 2.5 hours south to see a movie that had LGBTQ characters in it because they were afraid of losing their job here. And thinking about not recognizing that. Now I wonder what it's like to be a young person not recognizing some of the stories in here. So I'm just thinking about like how we give back and how we show up for other people and how we keep making it better. I guess I wanted to say that because I know maybe some of them are in the room tonight, and I'm grateful. I'm really grateful. It's always easier when someone makes space for you. So I feel like part of my message to you is actually a message to the people around you, to make sure that you know that you're loved and that you're okay just the way you are. The other thing I have to say is, and I know this is easier said than done, I hope you'll find a way to stop caring so much about what other people think of you. I know it's easier said than done. Like, middle school sucks, high school sucks, right? Like, or maybe it's good for some people, but
those people are not here tonight.
They're not. I say that it's like you're still working through your trauma. I was so obsessed with the opinions of other people in high school, and the only thing I cared about was meeting their expectations, of achieving their standards of popularity, of shaping myself into the person that they wanted me to be, not the person I wanted to be. And so I started believing more in what they had to say about me, and I started believing it rather than the things I could have been telling myself. And I know that I'm an adult and I get to sit here and say that now. But the opinions of those people do not matter. I ran into someone in Target the other day. Surprise. And I promise this comes from a good place. And it took me like 10 minutes talking to, sorry, I just want to like see the young people in the room. It just feels weird. Like I'm not saluting you all. I just,
we can do the lights up because we're
can we just bring them up?
turn it into questions
Is that okay?
after. Yeah. That'd be
Thank
great.
you. Hello. So, hi. So I run into this person in Target and we're talking for 10 minutes and it takes me a while to realize that, oh, I went to high school with this person and I don't know what their name is. And it just reminded me, like, remember when you were younger and you were so obsessed with their opinions of you? And one day you're gonna grow up and you're gonna forget the people that you went to school with. Fact of life. Some of the people that I went to elementary school with are in this room tonight, and that's pretty cool. But if you can find a way to remind yourself and help your friends remember that one day we're gonna leave this place, and the opinions of these people will not shape us. And sometimes I wish I would have known that, like, I wasn't defined by the opinions of people in school. I wasn't defined by my surroundings. That it really is true what RuPaul says. It really is true. But if you can't love yourself, how are you gonna love anybody else? You have to find a way to remind yourself of how powerful you are, and find all of the goodness and all of the things that set you apart from everybody else. Lean into the things that make you different and unique. And sometimes when I say this, like, oh my God, I sound like those annoying speakers they brought in high school. But it really is true. It really is true that you get to grow up one day and be the person that you want to be. And at the end of the day, at least now in these shoes, getting to be this person, the thing I'm most concerned about is being proud of myself at the end of every day, and not thinking about what people are saying on Twitter or Instagram. I'm not even on TikTok, so I can't imagine. But find ways to remind yourself how cool it is to be different. And I hope you'll find that. Because God loves some of the people I went to high school with. I don't know where they are. I don't know what they're doing, but I remember I spent years of my life concerned that they'd hate me. And look where we are now, So that, and two, thank you. Thank you for everything the fact that you're here tonight, the fact that some of you have found the courage to be yourself before you even graduated high school. And to the people in this room who love you and support you, thank you as well. I'll stop hogging the floor.
Well said.
Thank you, sir.
Well said. Okay, let me break down how the Q&A works in the interest of fairness to everybody, because there's 660 folks. So there are 2 microphones down here. Please feel free to line up. There's a third one roaming up there. Please try to keep your question as succinct as possible so that we can get to as many people as possible. And obviously, please tell us your name. And I guess we've got our first question.
All righty.
Hey, hi,
Howdy.
Chasten.
Hi.
I'm Jim from South Bend, Indiana, bringing a little love.
Look at that.
So I want to make a quick statement before I ask my question. I am co-chair of PFLAG Michiana. And so anybody here who wants advice on running a PFLAG in a small city in the Midwest, PFLAG Michiana, you can Google it, pflagmichiana@gmail.com. I'll be happy to help.
Awesome. Thanks, Jim.
So I'm a kind of a transplant from New York City, and I came to South Bend. So now you're going from the Midwest and raising a family on the East Coast. Things are very different. And
Yeah.
I wonder, your comment on like how you see the world, young people growing up in a blue state, on the East Coast versus in the Midwest where it can be more challenging.
Yeah, well, the biggest difference is they don't serve ranch with everything out there, which is just ridiculous. It's atrocious. it's pretty neat when I go to the playground and I'm not the only gay dad. And then sometimes this is gonna sound bad, but it actually is neat. Like sometimes you go to the playground, you're not only the only, there's like multiple gay families, and then they don't even talk to each other. That's kind of cool, right? It's not like we don't feel obligated to talk to each other. Like, oh my God, me too, right? Like they're just like going about their life, doing their own thing, and so that's cool to see. And it is nice to not worry about sticking out too much. Being gay, I guess we stick out for other reasons. But I want to see that here for everybody. I want families to be able to walk down Front Street and not worry about whether or not someone's watching or gawking. And I think we'll get there. I certainly feel, I mean, I'm not afraid to, walk my kid down Front Street or hold my husband's hand, but yeah. Oh, thank you. Sorry about my grades. So yeah.
Hi, Chasten, Cal. Nice to meet you guys. I'm Erin. I'm from Traverse City, but I don't have my local card yet. I've only been here 5 years, so I think it's like 30 before they'll let you be a local. I'm part of a mom group here. We're
Have you
big
spat a
fans.
cherry pit yet?
I absolutely have.
Okay,
yes,
so yeah, you're like punching
I'm
the
a
card.
local.
Yeah.
Big fan. If you ever want to join our mom group, we're on the west side. Holler at us. We'll meet you at the beach.
Hey.
That's my mom group. You talked to, I have actually a bunch of us have young kids here. I have a 2.5-year-old. I'm pregnant with my second. You mentioned that, it's so important to talk to kids about LGBTQ, about kids that are different than you. And that's something that I think about every day as I raise my toddler and my 2 kids here. Besides just talking to them about how much you love them, are there any other ways to immerse them in LGBTQ culture, or even, culture that's different than ours, right? Like, that's not just white Christian, Christianity. I'm looking for a more diverse.
Sure. Yeah, I think, like, obviously my kids are young. They're almost 2. They don't have the language for our lived reality. But the thing that I can teach them is that we just love everybody, right? And there are some children's books that, we're able to read, like families look different, but it's just, I'm always thinking about the way I want home to feel for our family, all right? Because it starts at home. And so I don't have like a specific answer to your question, but I'm always thinking about that too. Whether that's like allowing both of our kids to play dress up and never saying like, that's a boy toy, that's a girl toy, and just allowing them to become the people that they are and just immerse themselves in a, happy, loving, accepting household. So I've been thinking about that and just making conscious choices that way. And then I think it's great that you're connecting with other parents, so you're not doing that alone. You're not isolated and feeling all of those feelings and thoughts alone. So I think you're taking, a great step. I think just being conscious of the things that maybe we grew up with, the things we grew up being told or thinking, and making adjustments. Like maybe there was something I didn't appreciate about the way we talked about masculinity, or we boy toys and girl toys and things. So I think you're on the right track. Yeah.
Great question. We have one up there.
Hi. I was told I had to ask a question, even though I just had a comment, but it's about your first book, and I found a mistake in there.
I'll take notes for you. Yeah.
Other people get paid to check that, and that's on them.
Actually, it was not a bad one. But when you worked at the hospital and you said that most of the nurses liked you, well, all of us loved you.
Oh my gosh. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I was waiting for the joke. Like I found
a
a mistake in your book, and you said we all liked you, and I hated you. Good night. No, thank you so much. I loved working there. Thanks for letting me steal the ice cream.
Good.
Hi there. My name is Barb, and I am lucky enough to be a proud mom. So I have a daughter. She came out to me when she was 15, and I already knew. I was just waiting for her to tell me. And I want to say to the students, maybe some of your parents already know, and it's going to be okay. And I just want to say also, I give mom hugs. So I know there's probably some people in here that need a mom hug. Meet me out there. And then I want to ask you a question.
Sure.
Earlier you said you don't want to normalize, hanging out in the White House, but what are you going to do when you're first gentleman?
Yeah. That, I don't know. I'm always flattered when people say that. And I just like going to Target, and I just don't know. I don't know. I love my husband, period.
So some of DC has rubbed off on you, giving the
This is so political.
the political answer to the
Harsher punishment. No. I just I'm kind of enjoying doing my thing right now, and but I'm flattered that you think I could do that.
Go ahead.
Why are you laughing? You just applauded.
Those are all your friends.
I don't know how. It won't move. Oh, wait.
Are there any questions from the student section? I want to make sure if any student has a question that you get the microphone. Oh, there's the microphone. Can we take it to the student section next? I don't know what's happening.
Yes, here. Let's
Yes, okay.
take one down here, and then we'll
Okay.
we'll go to the student section. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Paula. I'm from Bath. Brought my 8th grade daughter here tonight because it's really nice to show her ways in which she's accepted. And I respect the answer you just gave as to the first gentleman question,
gosh.
but I met you when I was out knocking doors for your husband, and you give the best hugs. And
Oh,
we need you. So
that's very
could you
kind.
just not be so selfish with your free time? No. Anyway, no.
You're very kind.
You do you. My question is on I too knew my daughter was LGBTQ before I think she did. She's still surprised when I tell her that. Parents that pay attention know.
Yeah.
I am raising her to be free and loved and accepted. I almost feel like I'm setting her up for a scary experience in the world where that isn't the case when you step out of my house. All of these states that are making these these laws. She made a joke about going to Florida because it was snowing again in Michigan, and I said, you can't go to Florida. It's not safe there for you.
Yeah.
How do you speak to that dichotomy, that balance?
Well, you're doing the right thing. I think it's pretty cool that you're here. Anytime I meet a parent who loves their kid just the way they are, I think it's really cool. And you might not know the tremendous impact that you've had on your kid's life and how incredible it is that people get to bear witness to that. How do you speak to raising a kid in a scary world? I'd love to know. It's terrifying. And as a parent that you wear your heart on it's like on the outside of your chest and you're terrified of everything. I'm scared. I've never been afraid of flying, and now I get misty every time I get on an airplane because I'm leaving my kid. You just get so emotional about everything. And then you look at the state of the world and it's enough to make you break. But you're doing the right thing by raising a kid to know that they're loved. And you can only armor your kids so much before, they're leaving the nest. But at least you will have armored your kid enough to know who they are. Because some people jump out of the nest and have no idea who they are, have no idea that it's okay to be themselves. And they're not quite sure if when they come back to the nest, their parents will love them in the first place. So I think you should give yourself a lot more credit than you are. And you give free mom hugs.
Student question up there.
Sure. My name is Maddie. I'm a I'm a junior in high school. And as a young queer person, I am very aware that homophobia is still present in schools. But as a teacher and then as a student who was gay in high school, how do you think, or I guess, how have you seen that progression, like through the years, modern versus when you were in high school? Well, okay, no, I didn't mean
It's
it.
a great question, old man.
When I was in high school, there were no gays.
I know it exists because I saw it when I was a teacher. Here's the thing I want to task you with, and just based on the 3 seconds I've known you, I kind of feel like you're the person that's already doing the thing I'm about to ask you to do. Call it out. If your teachers aren't sticking up for you, call them out. I'm serious. Zero tolerance. And who cares if you're a narc, a tattletale, what words are we using today? I'm very old. Please call it out. Because you don't have to like wait to graduate to enter the real world, right? Like those things don't matter. Those things matter now. It's not like they matter once you leave high school, then you have an obligation to speak up, or then you get to speak your truth, and then those things have consequences out there in the real world. High school is the real world. There's no room for bigotry in high school. And if your teachers aren't backing you up, or if your district isn't backing you up, I hope you raise hell. And I'll be right there with you. Zero tolerance.
Hi, my name is Jill, and I am from Ann Arbor, so we came across the state. Yay, Ann Arbor peeps. Well, first, actually, I want to tell Cal you've done a great job. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
And if
Cal.
it were up to me, you would definitely be the new host of The Daily Show. So I just
Thank
want
you.
to
Well,
know
I
that.
appreciate that. Big round of applause for my final guest of that week, who's up here today. Thank you. That was amazing. They haven't made their decisions yet, so I'm fingers crossed.
Also, a special shout out to Chasten's parents. I marched alongside you in Mount Pleasant in the fall of 2019. Hi, Sherry. And we had a great time. What I really wanted to say, so I'm a former independent bookstore manager and children's buyer, and my favorite moments were when parents came in and said, do you have a book about a kid who's gay so I can give it to my kid who just came out and so they'll know they're not alone? And I had a bunch of those moments. And there are more books now than there used to be, but I'm so glad that you wrote this book. So there's one more book that booksellers like myself can hand to parents and say, have your kid read this book.
Oh,
This
thank
is a
you.
good book for them.
Thank you very much.
So there is a question in here. I heard you hint about how you might write a book for younger children.
Yeah.
And so what kind of book would that be? And would it be the kind of book that Penelope and Gus like? And what kind of books do they like?
Oh, well, right now we're very enamored with birds
Birds are good.
and Goodnight Moon. But because a lot of Moon fans here tonight. Because we're starting to read so many books, I've started to realize the lack of books that have families that look like ours in them. So I think I'm going to do something about that, which is pretty fun. It's exciting, but I should probably finish this book tour first and go from there.
Buddy and Truman will also make appearances in this book.
Buddy and Truman are on the back of this one, in case you didn't notice. Easter egg, I'm just like Taylor Swift. All the Easter eggs.
Thank you.
Decode them all.
Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Nick. I grew up in Traverse City. I just was listening to your audiobook actually last week, and I graduated West in 2016, went to CCD, resonated with a lot of what you were saying. Currently kind of came out last year, and I'm a med student back home now and working with different people across town on making medicine more inclusive and trying to figure out how many... And trying to figure out how many silos of different clinics are working on it independently and then connect them across North. So that's kind of something I'm trying to work on, and I appreciate inspiring people. My other question does benefit more your family than everyone else, and bring it up at the dinner table, but high-speed rail to Traverse City?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
I don't know how to build a train. I don't know if I am the right person to ask.
That could be. That's
I
a good
got you.
children's book idea for your next children's book. High speed rail.
Yeah, it's just a gay
Traverse
family
City,
on a
yeah.
high-speed train.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But it's not about the fact that they're gay. They're just there.
They just enjoy the train. Yeah.
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 And it's got birds in the train. Okay. Sorry.
We'll head up there.
Hi, I'm Ash. I was wondering if you still wanted to know how much for the rescue.
Yes! How much
Absolutely,
the rest?
I do.
It's 2,800.
It is
Shut
2,800.
the front door.
You should put that on the sign.
They should put a Venmo QR code on there. It goes right to the Coast
Yeah.
Guard. Oh,
Wow.
like, we gotta go.
2,800.
And they're talking about the debt ceiling right now, and I've got a way.
Wow.
That, can you imagine?
No.
I mean, I don't have that money, but we could probably pool together. How many seats are on the helicopter?
Oh yeah, that's the next one. Is it per person, or if it's a party of 3, can you still?
Per person.
Wow.
Oh.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you
Glad
so
we have that.
much.
Yeah. Thank you.
Incredible.
How are we on time? I think we only have time for 1 or 2 more, so
I'll try to be
be
expeditious.
quick. Yeah.
My name is Grace, and I'm in 5th grade, and I have 2 questions for you.
You
My
got it.
first question is, what part of your book brought you the most joy?
Oh, you see how Grace presented the question? Just incredible. The framing,
Yeah.
it was so good. There's this story in the book that I didn't want to tell because I think it's a great read, about the time I realized that I was very good at being dramatic.
I love this story. By
I
the
think
way.
it's the best chapter in the book.
It's great.
I was a very dramatic kid, and I was bullied a lot, and something happened one day involving a dead insect, and I turned the tables on everybody. And so I think you'll enjoy that chapter.
My second question is, how do you want to see this area evolve in the future, and what can young people do to help?
Oh, it's great. I love that. I want everyone to know that they fit in, that they belong. I want everyone, I mean, everywhere, but this is home. And I feel like Traverse City has done such a great job at peeling away some of those layers. I mean, the things that you never would have seen even 10 years ago. I get misty sometimes walking around Traverse City. Like, when you see an Up North Pride sign, like out in the county, just at the end of a dirt road, I'm serious. It's so cool. It's just such an easy way to tell your neighbors, like, I got your back, you know? And for young people, I want young people to hold older people accountable. Ask all your questions, because some adults aren't committed to making it easier for you and safer for you. And it's okay to speak up and say, I disagree, and I think there could be a better way.
Really well said. Thanks for the great question. Okay, we have time for our last question down here. And before you ask it, once we're done with that question, there's a fun photo that we want to take. So I'll let you know when, but if everyone can hold up their books, we'll have a photographer come out, and then we can. But let's do the last question first.
Hi, Chasten. My name is Sean.
Hi.
And one of the things I struggle with, both of my kids, as we say, fall within the rainbow, as do the majority of their friends who hang out at our house because it's the safe, happy place.
Wait, I missed the first part. About the rainbow? Did you say
Both
rainbow?
of my kids fall within the rainbow.
Oh, I love that. I didn't want to respond inappropriately if that wasn't the.
One of the questions that I struggle with is I get so many people that come up to me and they're like, oh, you're such a wonderful parent. You accept your trans child. You accept your gay child. You accept all these other kids. And it's like answering that without coming off really sarcastic of seriously, you're a parent. This is what
Yeah.
you're supposed to do. What?
Yeah.
Got any tips for that? Without just looking at the person like they're an idiot, because this is your child. You gave birth to them.
Yeah.
You know, it's like I told my son when he came out to me as trans. It's like, you know, nothing you do will ever change how I feel about you. You can murder people. I will still love you. I'll visit you in jail if you get caught, but I'll still love you. You are my child. And so the fact that people come up and are just like, oh, you're such a great, perfect, wonderful parent because I love my child, a response to that.
Oh, well, I mean, don't encourage murder. I know what you're saying, because I think there should be this like very simple rule about becoming a parent, which is that if you're not willing to love your child unconditionally, don't become a parent. And when I held my kids in my hands for the first time, I can't imagine ever looking at this very small child and saying, there are some conditions. How do you not love your kid unconditionally? And maybe when folks say that to you, though, maybe they're asking for a conversation. I certainly know what you're saying, and it is wild sometimes, the conversations we have. But I do wonder sometimes if folks say something because they don't know how to ask the question. And sometimes it comes off maybe off color. I think my parents have experienced this with someone asking them about having a gay kid, and it can rub you the wrong way, you know, where it's like, so your kid's gay? You know? And if you're, you know, you might perceive that to be like, they're like, you know? But maybe what they're actually trying to say is like, how do you do it? How do you, and maybe for them, it's like, how do you raise a kid to love themselves in a world that still isn't ready for them yet? And so maybe sometimes when somebody asks you something like that, maybe they're asking for a conversation. But that's just me being an optimist. So, but thanks for loving your kid.
What a great last question. So before you're signing books, yes?
Yeah, yeah.
Before you go out to sign books, I think we're going to take one photo.
Okay.
If everyone wants to, I just want to make sure we've got the photographer.
Yeah, happy Mother's Day. To me? Well, I'm not a mother, but happy Mother's Day to that mom who loves me unconditionally.
If everyone, happy Mother's Day, yes. And thank you for this amazing conversation tonight. Please, a round of applause for these guys. Chasten, Cal, it was brilliant. Yeah. Now, while you're standing, if you would hold up your book over your head, and we're going to take a picture. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here this evening. Join us in the lobby and we'll see you again.